The year was 1976. Sacramento County, California, once a picture of suburban tranquility, found itself gripped by fear. A new predator stalked the night, a shadowy figure soon to be known as the East Area Rapist. He began his reign of terror by targeting homes, usually those of young couples or women living alone. His crimes, initially burglaries, quickly escalated into something far more sinister. The East Area Rapist's victims fit a horrifyingly broad profile. He preyed on women of various ages, backgrounds, and appearances. The common thread? They were alone or with partners unable to protect them. This indiscriminate selection spread panic through the community. No one felt safe. The social climate of the 1970s, with its evolving gender roles and growing pains of societal change, provided a backdrop for the fear. Women, newly embracing independence, now found themselves facing a terrifying new reality. The fear was palpable. Neighbors distrusted neighbors. Women armed themselves with whistles and weapons, attending self-defense classes in droves. The once peaceful neighborhoods transformed into fortresses of fear, each house holding its breath, wondering when the monster would strike next. The police, overwhelmed and underprepared for a criminal of this nature, seemed to be always one step behind, their frustration mirroring that of a terrified community. Newspapers ran daily headlines chronicling the East Area Rapist's latest offenses, each more brazen than the last. The reports detailed the escalating violence, the meticulous planning, and the haunting lack of solid leads. Fear, like a virus, spread through the community, leaving no one untouched. The idyllic vision of suburban safety lay shattered, replaced by an unsettling awareness of the darkness lurking beneath the surface. The East Area Rapist was a meticulous planner, his crimes exhibiting a chilling attention to detail that amplified the terror he inflicted. His modus operandi became etched in the minds of investigators and the nightmares of his victims. He would often stalk his victims for weeks, learning their routines, their vulnerabilities, their very lives before finally making his move. This meticulous planning, this intimate knowledge of their lives, only served to heighten the terror. The attacks often began with a break-in, the East Area Rapist slipping into homes silently like a phantom. He would often disable phones and gather ligatures, transforming everyday objects into tools of terror. His victims, waking to the terrifying realization that they were not alone, would find themselves at the mercy of a masked intruder. He would bind them, often with shoelaces or belts found in the house, further asserting his dominance. The psychological torture inflicted by the East Area Rapist was as devastating as the physical violation. He would whisper threats, promising to return if they dared to disobey. He would ransack their homes, leaving behind a scene of chaos that served as a constant reminder of the violation they had suffered. This deliberate infliction of psychological trauma, this need to exert absolute control, spoke volumes about the darkness that dwelled within him. His crimes went beyond the physical, they were an assault on the very soul. He would force his victims to endure hours of captivity, whispering threats and obscenities, turning their own homes into prisons of fear. He would often steal personal items, small trinkets and mementos, not for their monetary value, but for their significance, taking with him a piece of their lives, leaving behind a void far greater than any material loss. This calculated cruelty, the desire to not just violate but to completely dismantle their sense of security and self, became his horrifying signature. As the East Area Rapist's crime spree continued, a terrifying pattern emerged. His crimes escalated in brutality. The rapes, once horrific but seemingly driven by a need for control, began to take on a more sinister edge. His attacks became more frequent, more violent, his need for control morphing into something darker, something more sinister. The whispers, once threats of return, now hinted at something more permanent, something final. His geographic range also expanded, his reign of terror spreading beyond the borders of Sacramento County. From the quiet suburbs, he ventured south, his crimes surfacing in Contra Costa County, Santa Barbara County, and Orange County. This expansion, This widening gyre of violence indicated a boldness, a disregard for boundaries that chilled investigators to their core. The monster they were hunting, the one they thought they had contained, was proving to be far more elusive, far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. It was in Southern California that the East Area Rapist fully embraced the mantle of a killer. The attacks, once focused on rape and domination, now culminated in murder. Couples were targeted, their lives brutally extinguished in their own homes. The victims, once primarily women alone or with children, now included men, their presence no deterrent to the killer's rage. This escalation in violence, this shift from control to outright murder, signaled a chilling transformation, the monster within finally breaking free of its constraints. The fear that had gripped Sacramento now spread like wildfire, engulfing Southern California in its icy grip. Law enforcement agencies working together but still frustratingly behind, faced a terrifying reality. They were dealing with a predator who evolved, who learned from their efforts, who seemed to exist just beyond their grasp. The media, sensing the growing panic and the insatiable public appetite for every detail, amplified the fear, turning the unknown assailant into a boogeyman, a faceless terror that haunted the dreams of millions. Section 4: Connecting the Dots. The Golden State Killer and the Original Night Stalker. By the early 1980s, California was grappling with the reality of not one but two terrifying predators stalking the night. In Southern California, a new moniker joined the lexicon of fear: the Original Night Stalker. His crimes, marked by shocking brutality and a seemingly random selection of victims, terrorized communities from Santa Barbara County to Orange County. Like the East Area Rapist, he invaded homes, often killing couples, his brutality leaving a trail of fear and grief in its wake. For years, the two cases remained separate, each investigated in isolation. However, whispers of a connection began to circulate amongst investigators. The modus operandi, while not identical, shared chilling similarities. The geographical overlap, the escalation in violence, the seemingly random victim selection, all hinted at the possibility, however improbable, that they were dealing with the same perpetrator. It was a daunting thought. The idea that one individual could be responsible for such widespread terror, for such a diverse range of crimes, was almost too much to comprehend. Yet the evidence, however circumstantial, continued to mount. Criminologists and profilers, examining the cases side by side, began to see the faint outline of a single, terrifyingly adaptable predator. The possibility of a connection sent shockwaves through law enforcement. If true, it meant they were dealing with a criminal mastermind. Someone capable of altering his methods, his targets, his very persona, to avoid detection. The realization, while terrifying, also brought with it a glimmer of hope. By combining their efforts, by sharing information and resources, they might finally be able to catch the monster who had eluded them for so long. Section 5: Decades of Dead Ends. The Frustrating Hunt for a Ghost. Gap 2S. Section 6: The Breakthrough and Call to Action. After decades of frustration and dead ends, the relentless pursuit of justice finally paid off. In 2018, through the revolutionary use of genetic genealogy, authorities were able to identify and arrest Joseph James DeAngelo, the man behind the mask of the Golden State Killer, Gap 3S. This groundbreaking technique involved cross-referencing DNA from crime scenes with data from genealogy websites, leading to the arrest of a man who had eluded justice for so long. The arrest brought a sense of closure to the victims and their families, marking a significant victory in the fight against cold cases. Gap 3S. As we reflect on this monumental achievement, we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on the use of genetic genealogy in solving cold cases? Do you think this technology will revolutionize criminal investigations? Gap 3S. Don't forget to like this video if you found it informative, share it with others who might find it intriguing, and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into true crime mysteries. Your engagement helps us bring more content like this to you. Gap 2S, thank you for watching and stay safe.